I was in my parents' living room, the room filled with the sweet, decaying scent of wilted flowers. The walls, once vibrantly colored, were now faded, as were the childhood memories I'd spent there. Sitting on the leather sofa, my parents watched me with looks that couldn't decide between surprise and irritation. I could barely process the magnitude of what I'd just learned. The call from the Swiss manager had been a shock, but the unease in my parents' eyes threatened to be even more devastating. "Honey, we don't know what you're talking about," my mother said, her voice filled with an artificial sweetness that irritated me deeply. My father remained silent, but his hands were clenched, betraying his tension. I'd never seen my father so uncomfortable, and it only fueled my determination. "You knew. Don't pretend you didn't," I said, my voice firmer than I felt inside. "The manager told me everything. The Swiss account, the 150 million, it was Grandma's." My mother glanced quickly at my father, as if searching for an answer he seemed unwilling to give. The room felt cramped, the walls closing in as the silence stretched on. My heart pounded, as if trying to compensate for the lack of words in the room. "Why did you lie to me?" I asked, unable to hide the hurt that colored my voice. "You made me believe she was nothing. Why hide something like that?" Finally, my father spoke, his voice low and measured. "We wanted to protect you, Marta. Money, it changes people. You wanted to control me," I replied, each word carrying a truth I was only now beginning to realize. "You always have." My mother sighed, a look of defeat crossing her face. "We thought we knew what was best for you. Better for me or better for you?" The question hung in the air, like a specter that couldn't be ignored. I felt betrayed, as if the solid ground beneath my feet had turned to quicksand. Their silence gave me the answer I feared. As resentment boiled inside me, I realized it wasn't just the money but the trust that had been broken. "I need to understand how all this happened," I said, my voice a little softer, but still firm. "How could you deceive me for so long?" I left the room, my heart still heavy but my resolve stronger than ever. I knew I needed to go back in time, revisit memories, stories, and secrets that had been buried beneath layers of lies and manipulation. Only then, perhaps, would I understand my grandmother's true legacy and the path she truly wanted me to follow. The air felt heavy, almost palpable as I stood in the living room, staring at my parents, desperately wishing this moment was just a nightmare I could wake up from. But every second that passed only reinforced the stark reality of the situation. The silence between us was deafening. It was as if time had stopped, leaving only the echo of their words still lingering in the air. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions: disappointment, anger, sadness, and above all a sharp pain of betrayal, cutting deep like a sharp knife. I looked at my mother, trying to find some trace of the loving woman I always thought I knew, but her expression was closed, almost impenetrable. My father kept his eyes fixed on his hands, avoiding my gaze, as if trying to hide from his own remorse. "So it's true," I said, breaking the suffocating silence. "You knew about the money all along and decided to keep it from me. Why?" My voice trembled slightly, but not from weakness. It was the tension of someone on the verge of discovering a long-buried truth. My mother exchanged a quick glance with my father before answering, her voice low and hesitant. "Marta, we did this because we thought it was best. You were so young, we didn't want money to corrupt you." "Corrupt? Or were you afraid of losing the control you so cherished?" I countered, my voice rising a tone amid indignation. My father finally lifted his head, his eyes meeting mine with a mixture of shame and silent challenge. "It's not just about control, Marta. It's about responsibility. What would you have done with so much money so young? That wasn't your decision to make," I said, feeling fury boil inside me. "You always talk about responsibility, but hiding something so big from me, is that what you call protecting?" With each word I felt the tension build, the atmosphere in the room almost electrified with emotion. My heart pounded against my chest, as if trying to escape the tangle of lies and secrets. My mother sighed, her eyes watering, but still avoiding my direct gaze. "We did what we thought was right at the time. Your grandmother was a complicated person. We never really know her motives. It doesn't justify anything," I said, my voice firm and resolute. "For years you let me think she had nothing, that she had no legacy but stories and memories, but it was all a lie, wasn't it?" Their silence spoke louder than any words could. It was a tacit acknowledgement, a reluctant acceptance of their guilt. I felt a wave of sadness, Not just at the betrayal, but at the broken bond of trust I thought I had with them. You taught me to always seek the truth, to be honest. And now I find out that it was all just a facade? I asked, bitterness seeping into every syllable. My mother finally found the courage to look into my eyes, and what I saw there was a mixture of regret and something that almost felt like a silent plea for understanding. We know we made a mistake, Marta, but we don't know how to fix it. I shook my head, fighting the tide of emotions that threatened to engulf me. I don't know if there's a fix for this, but one thing is certain. I need to understand how it all got to this point. I need to go back in time and find out who my grandmother really was and what she wanted for me. With those words, I turned, leaving behind the room steeped in secrets and resentments. I knew this journey would be painful, but I also knew it was necessary. Only by understanding the past could I decide what to do with the future that was finally in my hands. Looking back, my earliest memories of school are shrouded in a mixture of shame and quiet determination. I pictured myself walking to the school gates, wearing the patched uniform that seemed to define me more than anything else. Every stitch my mother skillfully stitched into the clothes was a visible mark of our situation, a constant reminder of the stories I'd heard about my grandmother's poverty. The mornings were always the same. A solitary coffee before leaving. While my parents went about their own business, I'd prepare myself in front of the mirror, straightening the worn fabric of my sweater, trying to give it a new, hopeful appearance. But the truth was, no matter how hard I tried to improve my appearance, the kids at school always noticed the patches. On the way to school, I felt the weight of those stares. The school bus was always full of smiles and lively conversation, but also of critical glances. I sat by the window watching the city pass by, trying to hide in the shifting landscape. It was easier this way, pretending I was somewhere else where no one cared how much my clothes cost or what the facade of my house looked like. At school, recess was the hardest time. The children's laughter echoed through the courtyard, but to me every laugh seemed like mockery. And of course, there were always those who excelled at reminding me where I came from. "Marta, did you buy your uniform at a thrift store?" was the kind of comment I heard frequently, followed by laughter that reverberated in my mind long after the bell rang. There was a particular group that seemed to revel in my plight. Clara, their leader, was the worst. With her impeccably braided hair and always shining shoes, she was the opposite of what I represented. "Why don't you ask your rich grandmother to buy you new clothes?" she mocked, unaware that her words struck a nerve I couldn't explain. I wondered what they really knew about me. Did they realize the effort that went into each carefully crafted patch my mother had made? For how much I wished every day that I could somehow measure up to them. Anger and shame mingled inside me, forming a knot I didn't know how to untie. These moments shaped me more than I could admit at the time. I tried not to let them see how much their words affected me. But at night in my room I cried silently, suffocating my sadness into my pillow. It was there that I promised myself that one day everything would be different, that one day I wouldn't be defined by what I wore or what I owned. Despite the hardships, there were also moments of beauty, memories of my grandmother telling me stories in her garden, where the flowers bloomed in a cacophony of colors, oblivious to the outside world. She always said that our true wealth lay within us, a lesson I didn't fully understand at the time, but which now began to make sense. School was a battlefield, but also a place of learning. While others focused on their clothes and popularity, I threw myself into books, finding comfort in the well-organized pages and the knowledge they offered. If I couldn't compete with them in looks, I could surpass them in dedication and intelligence. Even so, the pain of the memories wouldn't fade so easily. As I walked out of my parents' living room, determined to uncover the truth about my grandmother, I realized I still carried within me the child who desperately longed to be recognized for more than the clothes I wore. It was time to honor that part of myself, to make peace with the past, and finally embrace the legacy that had been denied me for so long. The afternoon promised to be just another of those monotonous moments when I'd sink into my thoughts, trying to decipher the enigmas of the past that insisted on haunting me. I sat at the small desk in my room, the sun filtering softly through the curtains, creating golden patterns on the wooden floor. The room was immersed in an almost palpable silence, interrupted only by the occasional sound of cars passing outside. Just then the phone rang, its trill cutting through the air like a dagger. I hesitated for a moment, surprised by the unexpected interruption. I stood up slowly, walking toward the receiver with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. I didn't usually get many calls, especially at that hour. "Hello?" I answered, my voice carrying a hint of caution. "Miss Marta?" The voice on the other end was calm, but there was an unmistakable authority in its tone. "This is Hans Keller, manager of the Swiss bank. I hope I'm not disturbing you." I was silent for a moment, trying to process the words. A Swiss bank? For a moment, I thought there was some kind of mistake. "Yes, that's me. How can I help you?" "I apologize for the unexpected call, but this is a matter of some urgency. We have an account here in the name of your grandmother, Elizabeth Duarte, which was left exclusively for you." I felt my heart stop, a mixture of disbelief and shock hitting me like a wave. "Sorry, I don't think I quite understood. Did my grandmother leave me a bill?" "Exactly, miss," he confirmed, with almost palpable patience. "It's a significant account, currently worth $150 million. My mind whirled, the words floating around me as if in an unfamiliar language. "But this must be a mistake. My parents always said she had nothing." The silence on the other end of the line seemed compassionate but firm. "I understand your surprise, miss, but I assure you that all the documents are in order and the account is legitimate." The revelation sent my world spinning on an unfamiliar axis. Images of my grandmother flashed through my mind, her wrinkled hands as she told me stories, the scent of herbal tea that always accompanied her. How could she have hidden something so monumental? How did she get all that money? I asked more to myself than to the man on the other end of the line. Unfortunately, I cannot provide details about the source of the funds, only that they are available to you, as per the wishes expressed in your will. I felt as if I were observing my own life from the outside, watching an unexpected chapter unfold before me. Questions raced through my mind at a frantic pace, each one more urgent than the last. I don't know what to say, I admitted, my voice a whisper of disbelief. "It's understandable," Hans replied, his voice thick with understanding. "This kind of discovery can be overwhelming. I'm here to help you with any financial guidance you need." I thanked her, still stunned, promising to call back as soon as I could understand what it all meant. When I hung up, I stood there, phone still in hand, as if waiting for the world to realign itself into its usual orbit. But nothing seemed normal. As the weight of the revelation began to settle in, I realized that almost everything I thought I knew about my family, about myself, was about to be challenged. The pieces of the puzzle that was my grandmother's life, her relationship with my parents, and the mysteries she left behind were now within my grasp. And for the first time, I felt I had the power to put this puzzle together my way. It was a new beginning, a chance to understand not only the material legacy I had been denied, but also the true story of the woman who, until then, I believed she had lived a life of simplicity and deprivation. With a new sense of purpose, I knew that the journey I was about to undertake would change everything. The plane glided smoothly across the tarmac, the sound of the engines momentarily drowning out the whirlwind of thoughts in my mind. As I descended the steps of the private jet the Swiss bank had provided, I felt the fresh, thin Swiss air touch my face. It was different, invigorating, as if this new environment were offering me a glimpse of the future that now unfolded before me. I was about to meet someone who, according to the bank manager, had played a pivotal role in my grandmother's life, someone who apparently knew the true scope of her legacy and her plans for me. Curiosity mixed with slight nervousness formed a knot in my stomach. Upon entering the hotel's elegant lobby, I was greeted warmly and shown to a private room. The ambience was sophisticated yet cozy, with large windows offering stunning views of the snow-capped Alps. A sense of anticipation hung in the air. "Miss Marta, it's a pleasure to finally meet you." The voice came from a middle-aged man with grey hair and a gentle smile. He was sitting in one of the leather armchairs, his posture exuding confidence and serenity. "I'm Johann Müller," he continued, standing to greet me with a firm handshake. "Your grandmother spoke highly of you. I'm sure she would be proud to see you here, discovering the truth behind your choices. Johann, did you know my grandmother well?" I asked, my voice betraying some of the emotion I was trying to keep under control. "Yes, Elizabeth and I were close friends. I worked with her for many years, helping her manage her finances safely and efficiently. She was an extraordinary woman, with a vision beyond what many could imagine. There was a sincerity in his eyes that gave me a sense of security. I felt he was here not just out of obligation, but out of genuine care and respect for my grandmother's memory. Why didn't she ever tell me about this money? About you? The question slipped out before I could stop myself. She had her reasons, Johann replied, his voice soft as he stared out the window, as if searching for the right words. Your grandmother believed that a person's true worth lay not in their material possessions, but in their experiences and learning. She wanted you to grow up knowing the world in a way that wasn't distorted by wealth. I drank in every word, trying to reconcile the image of my grandmother I knew with the visionary woman Johann described. And now, what did she want me to do with this fortune? She left clear instructions about this, Johann said, handing me a sealed envelope. Elizabeth wanted you to use these resources to explore your passions and, most importantly, to make a difference in the world. She believed in your potential to transform lives, just as she transformed yours. Opening the envelope, I found a handwritten letter, my grandmother's familiar handwriting bringing tears to my eyes. Her words were encouraging, full of love and hope for the future she envisioned for me. I'm here to help you navigate this new chapter, Johann assured, his voice a steadying anchor amid the storm of emotions. With the experience I've gained alongside Elizabeth, I can guide you on how to manage this fortune in a way that honors both your values and hers. The feeling of being on the brink of something monumental was overwhelming, but also empowering. For the first time, the path ahead seemed clear, illuminated by the legacy of strength and wisdom left by my grandmother. With Johann by my side, I knew that this journey, though challenging, would also be an opportunity to discover the true meaning of wealth and purpose. When I returned to my hometown, I carried with me not only the weight of my newfound heritage, but also a renewed determination. This time, my homecoming was different, for I was no longer in the shadow of my parents or the stories they'd told me. Now I was the architect of my own destiny. Meeting Johann and reading my grandmother's letter had planted a seed of courage in me that I hadn't known I possessed. Elizabeth Duarte was more than the woman with wrinkled hands and a soft voice I knew. She was a visionary, and I was determined to honor her legacy. Entering my parents' house, the atmosphere changed. The walls that once surrounded me with stories of a childhood of appearances now felt tight and oppressive. My parents' gazes were inquisitive, perhaps anticipating the inevitable conversation we would have. "We need to talk," I declared, my voice firm but not aggressive. They looked at each other, a mix of concern and resignation written all over their faces. We sat in the living room, tension hanging in the air like an impending storm. "I know you believed you were doing what was best for me," I began, choosing my words carefully. But hiding the truth about Grandma was a choice that brought more pain than protection. My mother sighed, her gaze fixed on the floor. "Marta, we just wanted you to have a chance to grow up without the corrosive influence of money." "I understand," I said, and I did to some extent. "But now I need to go my own way. I have a responsibility not only to what Grandma left, but also to myself." My father looked up, the shadow of a man who realized the error of his ways. "And what do you intend to do?" "I will use this inheritance to build something meaningful, something that makes a difference. I will start a new life, one that is not defined by lies or imposed restrictions." The decision, when verbalized, brought unexpected relief. It was as if the invisible chains that had bound me for so long had finally broken. My parents sat in silence, absorbing the reality before them. I could see it was difficult for them, but I also knew it was necessary. I love them, but I can't keep living this way. I need space to figure out who I really am. The words seemed to echo in the room, finally giving voice to the truth I carried inside. My mother looked at me, her eyes welling up. "We just want you to be happy, Marta." "Me too," I replied softly. "And I know I can be, but I need to do this alone." With those words, I stood up, feeling a new lightness. I was beginning a journey that, though fraught with uncertainty, held the promise of self-discovery and fulfillment. The steps I took out of that house were the first of many that would pave a path of freedom and purpose. My grandmother had given me a gift beyond money. She gave me the chance to break free, and I was determined to honor that gift by building a future that reflected the values she held so dear. It was the beginning of a new era, and I was ready to embrace it with my whole being. The morning sun filtered through the windows of the newly opened office, casting a golden glow on the pristine white walls. As I walked through the space, still fragrant with the smell of fresh paint and new furniture, I felt a wave of gratitude and responsibility flood my heart. The charity I had dreamed of was finally becoming a reality, and every detail reflected my grandmother's legacy, a tribute to her vision and my determination to turn her aspirations into concrete action. Her name, Elizabeth Duarte, shone on a bronze plaque at the entrance, a constant reminder of the woman whose wisdom guided my every decision. The feeling of following the path she had envisioned for me was almost surreal, as if I were walking beside her, listening to her advice and encouraging whispers. As I watched the teams of volunteers organizing school supplies and clothing to distribute to the children, I was overcome with a deep sense of purpose. The sight of the small, colorful backpacks being filled with books and notebooks reminded me of my own school experiences, of the times when a simple new pencil was enough to ignite a spark of hope in my young, dream-filled heart. It was during one of these moments of contemplation that I heard a soft knock on the door. It was Laura, one of the institution's coordinators, who became a valuable friend during this process. "Marta, the children are starting to arrive. Would you like to welcome them?" I nodded, feeling a surge of anticipation. I walked to the main hall where a group of children, accompanied by their guardians, were beginning to gather. Their curious and excited looks were like a mirror of my own expectations, reflecting the hope and possibility of a better future. "Good morning, everyone," I began, my voice echoing through the room as everyone turned to me. "I want to welcome each of you. This institution was created so that you not only receive support, but also so that you can dream and achieve your own goals." The looks of admiration and surprise I received in return were enough to warm my heart. It was as if, by speaking, I was establishing an invisible connection with each of those children, a bond that transcended words and promises. My grandmother always told me that true wealth lies in our experiences and the impact we make on the lives of others. I hope that here you will find a space where you can grow, learn, and above all, believe in your own potential. After my speech, I was surrounded by curious children, each with a unique story and a sparkle in their eyes that spoke of renewed hope. As I talked with them, I realized that every challenge overcome, every tear shed, and every internal struggle had prepared me for this moment, to offer these children what I myself had once wished for. As the morning flowed by, laughter and activity filling the space, I felt a comforting presence beside me, as if my grandmother were there watching and approving. Her physical absence was palpable, but the impact of her life reverberated in every corner of that space, in the smiles that lit the children's faces, and in the seeds of hope that were being planted. At the end of the day, as the sun began to set, tinting the sky orange and pink, I sat alone in my office, staring out the window. Outside, the world continued to spin, but inside there was a peace I had never known before. I closed my eyes and whispered a silent promise to Elizabeth Duarte. "I will continue to honor your legacy, Grandma, by helping these children find the path to their own dreams." The journey was just beginning, but I knew I wasn't alone. With every challenge and victory, my grandmother's presence would live on in every step I took, guiding me, inspiring me, and above all, reminding me that true power lies in using our gifts to light the path for others. The days following the charity's opening were marked by a sense of accomplishment I hadn't experienced in a long time. Every smile I received from the children and every story of overcoming challenges I heard were constant reminders that I was on the right path. However, this tranquility was about to be shattered by news that would bring conflicting feelings to the surface. It was a winter morning, when the crisp air called for scarves and gloves, that I received a call from an old family friend. He seemed hesitant, almost reluctant to share what he knew. "Marta, I know you're distant from your parents right now," he began, his voice thick with concern. "But I thought you should know. Your family businesses are struggling." The impact of his words was immediate, like an unexpected punch. For a moment, the world around me seemed to slow down as I tried to process the information. "Problems? What do you mean?" I asked, disbelief tinging my voice. "Well, it turns out the situation is more complicated than it seems. Financial investigations have been opened, and there are rumors that lawsuits are on the way. Some important contracts have been cancelled, and debts are piling up quickly. I could hear the weight of the situation in every word, but a part of me didn't want to believe it. It was as if a piece of the past I'd left behind was invading my new reality. I knew that despite everything, my parents were resilient. They had built their empire with great effort, but now it felt like the house of cards was crumbling. I hung up the phone, a mix of emotions reverberating within me. Part of me wanted to rush to help them, to offer the support they might not deserve, but which I felt was the right thing to do. However, the other part, the one that had been hurt and betrayed, wondered if this wasn't simply the consequence of their own actions. I spent the day deep in thought, my work at the institution offering temporary relief from the emotional storm brewing within me. As the hours passed, I couldn't help but revisit moments from my childhood, memories of the days when I believed that family love was my greatest strength. As night fell, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the ceiling as the shadows danced softly. "What should I do, Grandma?" I murmured, hoping the silence would offer me some form of answer. The memory of her letter, with its words of wisdom and love, brought me unexpected comfort. "Use your power for the greater good," she had written. And in that moment, that phrase resonated more strongly than ever. I understood that despite the circumstances, my mission was now clear. I needed to remain steadfast in my commitment to helping those who truly needed it. My parents had made their choices, and the consequences were inevitable. My grandmother had always taught me responsibility and integrity, and now was the time to apply those lessons, even if it meant leaving behind the need to rescue those unwilling to change. With new determination, I decided I would move forward, focusing on the lives I could change, rather than losing myself in a past that no longer defined me. My parents' businesses might fail, but the strength I had found within myself would continue to grow, fueled by the legacy of wisdom and love Elizabeth Duarte had left behind. The rain pattered softly against the windows of my living room, creating a melancholy symphony that echoed the storm in my heart. There was something in the air, an almost palpable tension, as if the universe was setting the stage for a long-delayed encounter. I was lost in thought, trying to focus on a book that now rested forgotten on my lap, when the intercom buzzed in the silence. I stood up slowly, foreboding stirring within me, with the insistence of an inescapable truth. When I answered, the doorman's voice sounded hesitant. "Miss Marta, your parents are here. They'd like to come up." For a moment I stood frozen, fighting the urge to refuse and avoid the confrontation. But part of me knew this moment was inevitable. I took a deep breath, trying to summon the determination my grandmother so admired in me. "You can let them up," I replied, surprised by the firmness in my own voice. As I waited, my heart beat a wild rhythm, mixing with the sound of the rain outside. Soon I heard a soft knock on the door, and when I opened it, I found my parents on the other side, their faces etched with a mixture of anxiety and regret. They entered, and for a moment, we stood there, standing in the middle of the room, like strangers in familiar territory. Time seemed to stretch, each second an eternity of unspoken words. My mother was the first to speak, her voice a barely audible whisper. "Marta, thank you for having us." I nodded, crossing my arms in an attempt to shield myself from the vulnerability that threatened to invade me. "What do you want?" My father stepped forward, the determination in his gaze tinged with a vulnerability I'd rarely witnessed. "We're in trouble, Marta. The companies are on the verge of bankruptcy. We need your help." The admission hung between us, laden with a humility I'd never imagined seeing in them. Part of me wanted to welcome them, to offer the help I'd always sought. But another part was more cautious, protecting itself from the still open wounds. "Why me?" I asked, my voice firm but not cruel. "You always knew what was best. Why now, when everything is falling apart, do you decide to come to me?" My mother took a deep breath, her eyes welling up. "We were wrong, Marta, and we know it. We thought we were protecting you, but really we were just protecting ourselves from losing control." Her words touched something deep inside me, the sincerity of her confession echoing my own desire for healing. But there was still a part of me that clung to the pain of the past, not ready to let go easily. "And now you expect me to fix everything?" My voice was a mixture of disbelief and hurt. "After everything, you expect me to just forget?" "We're not asking you to forget," my father interjected, his tone thick with desperation. but we are asking for a chance to make things right. We know it's late, but we have no one else. The silence that followed was heavy, as if the air between us were charged with static electricity. I watched them, seeing not only the parents who had disappointed me, but also two people in their rawest form, stripped of pride and pretensions. "I need to think," I said finally, my voice softer than I intended. "That's a lot." They nodded. The relief in their eyes mingled with uncertainty about what would come next. As they turned to leave, I knew the path ahead was forking. It was a crucial crossroads, a decision that could redefine not only my relationship with them, but also with myself. I closed the door behind them, the echo of their footsteps still reverberating in my mind. The rain continued to fall, each drop a promise of renewal and hope. I sat back down, allowing silence to fill the room as I contemplated the complex tapestry of emotions surrounding me. Maybe my grandmother was whispering through the rain, reminding me that genuine love and forgiveness are the foundation of any lasting legacy. And maybe, just maybe, I was ready to listen. The rain continued to fall outside, each drop a gentle tap against the windows, as if the world were trying to calm the turbulence within me. I sat in silence, staring at the shadows dancing on the walls, pondering my parents' unexpected visit. Their plea echoed in my mind, a melancholy melody that refused to be silenced. I closed my eyes, searching for my grandmother's comforting presence in my memory. Her words, always so full of wisdom, came to mind. "Use your power for the greater good." This mantra whispered through my being, encouraging me to see beyond my immediate emotions and see the bigger picture. The decision I needed to make wasn't just about money or failed businesses. It was about who I was becoming. It was about the promise I'd made to myself to be different, to not let myself be consumed by the same mistakes that now threatened to engulf my parents. I knew that no matter what I decided, there would be consequences. But I also knew I had to be true to what I believed in. When the phone rang, bringing me back to the present, I answered without hesitation, hoping the voice on the other end might further clarify my thoughts. It was Laura, the coordinator of my charity. Her voice always so full of energy and hope. "Marta, sorry to call you so late, but we have wonderful news. We received an anonymous donation that will allow us to expand our programs and help even more children." I smiled even though she couldn't see it, feeling a wave of gratitude flood my heart. "That's amazing, Laura. We have so much work to do, and knowing we can touch more lives, it's just wonderful." As we discussed our plans for the future, I realized the path was unfolding in ways I couldn't always foresee. My grandmother's presence was there, in every child who would laugh louder, in every life touched by the work we were doing. After hanging up, I felt renewed clarity. I knew what I needed to do. The next day, I asked my parents to come back. This time, upon seeing them, a serenity I hadn't expected enveloped me. Inviting them to sit down, I began to speak, my voice firm and resolute. "I've thought long and hard about what you asked of me," I began, my eyes meeting theirs, which were watching me with a mixture of hope and apprehension. "And I know this is a difficult situation, but I need to be honest." The silence in the room was almost tangible, a pause that seemed to stretch on forever. I took a deep breath, letting my determination take over. "I can't use what Grandma left me to save your business," I continued, my voice soft but unflinchingly clear. "She gave me this gift so I could make a difference, so I could help those who truly need it. And that's what I intend to do." My parents looked at me, sadness and understanding fighting for space on their faces. For a moment, it felt like time had stopped, each of us caught in a delicate dance of unspoken emotions. "I love them," I added, my voice softening as I fought back tears. "But I need to follow my own principles. I need to honor Grandma's legacy the way she wanted." They nodded slowly, acceptance mingling with the pain of rejection. I knew it wasn't easy for them, but I also knew it was the right decision. We needed space to find our own answers, uninfluenced by old expectations and selfish desires. As they rose to leave, my mother touched my arm lightly, a gesture of understanding that spoke more than words could. My father, his eyes downcast, murmured a silent thank you, as if acknowledging the strength it took to make such a decision. As the door closed behind them, a new peace enveloped me. The path ahead was clear, not only for my life but for the mission I had chosen to embrace. My grandmother had left me a moral compass, and now more than ever, I was determined to follow it. The rain outside was beginning to ease, its soft music fading into a distant whisper as I looked to the future with renewed hope and determination.